There
the
we go.
things that she's saying. Here we go.
Child, and one pansexual child, and also as a leader. And that was the thing that really got me, because I have heard so much from so many of my colleagues over the course of the last couple of weeks, in open forums and through emails and phone conversations. And I feel a responsibility to speak, not just for myself, but for them, to all of us. We had an open forum last week at 20th where, again, the home of really incredible, groundbreaking LGBTQIA stories over the years, where one of our execs stood up and said, we only have a handful of queer leads in our content. And I went, what? That can't be true. And I realized, it actually is true. We have many, many, many LGBTQIA characters in our stories, and yet we don't have enough leads, and narratives in which gay characters just get to be characters, and not have to be about gay stories. And so that's been very eye-opening for me. And I can tell you, it's something that I feel perhaps had this moment not happened, I, as a leader, and me as my colleagues, would not have focused on. And going forward, I certainly will be more so.
So going forward, we certainly will be more so, because a lot of people, they throw out the criticism, well, Disney isn't doing this right now. And we'll talk about whether or not Disney is doing this right now later in the show. But this goes to show you what the plans are for Disney. They're going to start to incorporate more LGBTQ whatever type of characters in these films. Now, why is that a problem? Now, personally, I don't care, and this is something for me, I don't care if you have gay characters in a show or lesbian characters in a show. When we start to delve out of that and talk about transgender characters, especially with children's content, I do begin to have a problem. And they are making it very clear that as a corporation, they do not care what you feel as consumers. Let's remember that the vast majority of people who patronize Disney and their shows and their subscriptions are parents, and parents who are not okay with their children teaching this. And I don't care if you're on the left or the right, most parents are not okay with their child being made cognizant of sexual relationships and getting that education from an entity that is anything different than them. So they don't care. They've heard from a fringe amount of activists, whether that be within the company or outside the company, who are outraged by this Florida bill that has nothing to do with Disney. And they are saying, okay, instead of playing to our market, instead of going for the people who fund the things that we do, I'm going to listen to this fringe, small, but very loud minority of people who want us to cave into this woke ideology. And much of this video, if you go and watch these executive meetings, is just fanfare and theater. They know the heat that they're getting from this small minority, and they put out these videos to go, look, I promise we're having these conversations. I promise we're doing something about it, which is typical for corporations in America these days. You see this during the George Floyd riots, when that all sparked. Corporation after corporation started putting out these woke ads, let's make something up. Ford makes vehicles in all colors, and we don't care. We don't discriminate. Things like that. And that's what they do. They pander to whatever the conversation of the time is, and that conversation happens to be gender. My issue that goes beyond the pandering is when it starts to become children's content and you start to indoctrinate children. And that is going to be happening at Disney if it is not happening already. Here's another clip from Reimagine Tomorrow with Disney, where we have a Disney production coordinator, Alan March, talking about the massive influence that Disney has as a corporation, as well as the influence of other media outlets.
All this content's going to kids who don't know any of this, and even if they're in a household like Keith that have supportive parents, they're still getting all of this information from media of what is normal. And there's a lot of power to that, and it just needs to be acknowledged.
There's a lot of power to that, and it needs to be acknowledged. And also, we're having this whole this whole meeting among all of our executives, including Disney's president, where we talk about how we're going to move forward as this massive entertainment conglomerate and what we are going to do with our content. But we need to acknowledge the influence that we have. And he makes the point to say, you know, even with supportive parents, which means, let's talk about the underlying message there, is that Disney is trying to target children who don't have supportive parents, whose parents are going, no, I don't agree with these values. And I know maybe you heard this in school when you had your talk about gender theory, or you filled out your gender bread man, which is something that is happening in children's education. We want those kids. And that is so often the conversation when we have these discussions, is that there is, again, a small vocal minority of people who go, if your parents don't agree with what you're doing, or have a different view of what you're doing, or think this is not right for you, they're not your parents. We're your new parents. Let us raise your kids. Let us instill these values in them, but let's keep it quiet. Because if we tell the parents that this is happening, they won't buy the subscription. They won't let kids watch it. And we'll talk about this new film that they put out called Turning Red, and another film they're putting out called Better Nathan Never, or something like that?
Yeah, Better
Nathan Never, which has these sort of themes tied into them for children. And a lot of parents went, okay, Disney put on a new film, I'm going to play it with my kids. We're going to put it on at these sleepovers. And they have no idea the subliminal and completely overt messaging that are in these films. Now, lastly, from this Reimagine meeting, we heard from the CEO of Disney, Bob Chapek, in this sort of groveling, gun to the head apology for why Disney has stood back as a corporation and not said gay. And we have not put LGBTQIA plus people, which represent a very small sect of our society that is growing exponentially because of this sort of media and this sort of dogma. He grovels and apologizes. Now, before we watch this, just think in your brain, is this sincere? Is this sincere?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day for this very important session. By now, I hope you've all read my most recent note, in which I pledged to be a better ally for the LGBTQ plus community, apologize for not being the ally that you needed me to be, and committed to ensuring that our company lives up to its values. I meant every word, and that's what we're here to talk about today. I know that we've got work to do, and that work starts with listening. I'm glad the company will hear from today's panel of LGBTQ plus employees, and
we don't want to hear from those straight ones. Goodness, just the gay ones, guys. Please bring me the LGBTQ plus ones, and all you straighties, you just stay home and listen.
I hope that you are as impacted as I've been by the voices that I've heard over the past few weeks. I've read many emails that have been sent, spoken with LGBTQ plus employees and their allies, met with advocacy groups, and convened my own leadership team. And I have been taken by the honesty, the openness, and the urgency of their stories. I want you to know that your words have made a real impact on me.
He's like, I want you to know that your words have made a real impact on me. I myself am gay. I didn't know that until you told me, but I'm here to tell you today.
I understand that we've made mistakes and the pain that those mistakes have caused. And I know that our silence wasn't just about the bill in Florida, but about every time an individual or institution that should have stood up for this community did not. I and the leadership team are determined to use this moment as a catalyst for more meaningful and lasting change. We've heard many suggestions on how to do that, and we are working to move quickly. I want to thank the LGBTQIA Plus Advisory Council.
Okay, we don't need to listen to any more. I want to focus on something important that he just said. We want to use this moment as a catalyst for how we move forward as a company. Obviously, I just paraphrased what he said. But this is what happens. And this is why it is very important that you don't cave to a fringed group of very vocal people who tell you that you have to do something, or you are evil, or you are hate-filled, or you are bigoted and discriminatory, because it functions as a catalyst for how you lead your life moving forward. And maybe Disney is not involved in indoctrination as it stands today. I don't remember being indoctrinated by Disney as a kid. You can look up those old, deep dives that people do about subliminal messaging in Disney movies, like sexual undertones, and maybe that is true, and maybe that was just a bunch of adult animators working on kids content day in and day out and going, I'm gonna hide a little sex joke in there for the parents who catch it. I do think that has happened in Disney in the past, but it was never this overt political messaging to children about how they should feel about rebelling against parents. But this is a catalyst. When the people get mad at us and they scream, we bow down to them and we go, it will never happen again. And in fact, can you please write a list of demands for what you would like to see from our company moving forward? And we would make sure that that is met for you. That is what the CEOs are saying. That's what these executives are saying. And that's what these product managers are saying. And now we have